Hello to all the followers of Cinema Bites everywhere. Today, we will present to you the movie The Mummy. This film falls under the genres of thriller, action, and mystery. Our film begins in England in the year 1127 AD, where we see the Crusader soldiers deciding to perform the embalming rituals of the pharaohs. They placed the deceased person in a coffin, performed the rituals, and sealed the coffin, which had the same shape as the person inside it. Then, we move to the present time, where a group of workers is excavating underground to expand the subway, trains, and tunnels. Strangely, when they were digging, they discovered a large number of embalmed bodies belonging to the Crusader soldiers. The news channels started reporting on this matter, stating that the number of bodies found in the location was so vast that it resembled a massive cemetery covering London. It was known that due to the proximity of the burial site to a river, most of the bodies were covered in water. They mentioned that these bodies belonged to the Crusader knights who had occupied Egypt before returning to England. Next, we see one of the archaeology experts going to the excavation site and instructing the workers to stop any further activities because the site now falls under the jurisdiction of the Antiquities Authority. The expert mentioned that he always discovers new things about antiquities but had never known the secret of this particular tomb before. We also see one of the supervisors talking to the expert, informing him that they moved the excavation for the trains to another location. The man leaves, unaware of the expert's intentions. Then, the expert tells us the story of Princess Amenet, who was the daughter of the pharaoh and the rightful heir to the throne of Egypt after her father. Amenet was a very powerful and formidable princess, not easily defeated by anyone. But one day, all of Amenet's plans were ruined because her father decided to get married. After a few months, his wife gave birth to a son, and as a result, Amenet lost her chance to become the ruler of Egypt. This made her think about how she could regain power after her death. Since then, Amenet decided to follow the path of evil and perform the ritual of the god of death, named Set, which the pharaohs used to perform. We see her succeeding in performing the ritual, and afterward, a strange creature appears behind her and hands her a peculiar dagger. From that moment, the incantation starts to be inscribed on Amenet's body until she is fully possessed by evil. Amenet takes the dagger and goes to her sleeping father. She kills him and also her younger brother. Now, with the deaths of her father and brother, she secures her rule. To ensure her power, Amenet plans to have a relationship with anyone working in the palace, so that her offspring will be the heirs to the throne after her death. However, her plan fails when the palace soldiers discover her actions. They quickly apprehend her and take control over her. They lock her in a coffin while she is still conscious, burying her in a deep hole. Amenet is mummified while still alive, unable to do anything. Returning to the present, we go to the land between the two rivers, which is Iraq. There, we find a group of people who are striking statues with fire. Then, we meet two soldiers from the American Army who are monitoring the situation. One of them, named Vale, informs the other soldier, Nick, that the rebels' numbers are significant. Nick tells Vale not to worry, as they are capable of handling the situation. He has been trained for situations like this and believes in the strength of the American military. However, Vale remains concerned, noticing the determination and organization of the rebel forces. As they observe the rebels' movements from a distance, Vale notices a group of rebel fighters setting up what appears to be a hidden cache of weapons and supplies. He suggests to Nick that they could disrupt the rebels' plans by launching a targeted airstrike on the cache, effectively crippling their operations. Nick considers the idea but expresses his concern about potential collateral damage. He believes in minimizing civilian casualties and wants to exhaust all diplomatic options before resorting to military action. Vale understands Nick's perspective but emphasizes the urgency of the situation, pointing out that the rebels are growing stronger and could pose a significant threat if left unchecked. While Vale and Nick debate their course of action, they receive a transmission from their commanding officer. The commanding officer informs them that they have been authorized to launch an airstrike on the rebel cache, but with strict instructions to minimize civilian harm. Nick, feeling torn between the urgency of the situation and his commitment to protecting innocent lives, hesitates for a moment. Vale, understanding the weight of the decision, offers his support to Nick and suggests they use precision-guided munitions to minimize collateral damage. With a newfound determination, Nick acknowledges the risks but realizes that decisive action is necessary to maintain stability and protect innocent lives. He communicates their decision to the commanding officer and requests immediate air support for the targeted airstrike on the rebel cache. As they prepare for the mission, Nick and Vale mentally brace themselves for the potential consequences of their actions. They understand that the outcome of this operation could shape the trajectory of the conflict and have a profound impact on the lives of both the rebels and the civilians caught in the crossfire. With their helmets on and gear secured, Nick and Vale embark on their mission, embodying the gravity of the responsibility entrusted to them. Determined to carry out their duty with precision and empathy, they set out to disrupt the rebels' operations while safeguarding the lives of the innocent. The fate of the conflict hangs in the balance as they disappear into the horizon, ready to confront the challenges that lie ahead. And then Halsey went to see the cemetery in front of her and said that this cemetery belongs to ancient Egyptian civilization, and it could be the tomb of King Tutankhamun. If his treasure is discovered, its value would be £650 million. And then we cut to her commander and she told him that they could bring dynamite and close this cemetery and free themselves from all the talk that Halsey said. But Halsey asked the commander to allow her to explore this cemetery, and then the commander agreed and told her she had exactly 2 hours, and then they would move from the place. The commander told Vale and Nick that they would accompany Halsey down, but Nick objected to it. So the commander told him that it was an order that must be executed, and he knew what would happen if he didn't follow it. Then Nick, Halsey, and Vale tied the ropes and started descending. We know that the depth of the cemetery is very large to the point that they spent a long time until they reached the bottom. And then, as soon as they reached the bottom, Halsey started describing what she saw in front of her and recorded her words. At that moment, Vale said to Nick that he only sees huge statues, and they wouldn't be able to carry them. He asked where the treasure was that Nick was so obsessed with. Nick told him to wait a little and they would find out. While they were talking, Nick found a strange substance dripping on him. When Halsey asked what the substance was, she told him it was mercury, and they found mercury descending through openings under the ground. Then Halsey walked towards those openings to find out where they lead. She told Nick and Vale to follow her and bring their powerful flashlights with them. They arrived at another location with many statues, and Halsey was amazed by what she saw. She quickly told Vale and Nick to take out all the tools they had in their bags, and she explained what she saw in front of her. She said that there is an underground channel through which mercury flows to preserve the existing statues. Halsey also mentioned that there are seals that seal the messages and that there is another important person from the Temple of Luxor. Halsey continued to describe what she saw, and at that moment, Vale took the opportunity to collect small items that he could carry with him. Then Halsey said that this place was considered like a prison in ancient pharaonic civilization. Then Halsey told Vale to contact the commander and ask him to contact the defense agency so that they could communicate and bring specialists from Egypt. The commander talked to Vale and told him that they had to leave quickly to get out of the place. But at that time, Nick pulled the rope attached to his gun, and at that moment, strange movements began in the place, and the rest of the ropes were activated. They realized that a large statue was being lifted, and at the same time, many spiders appeared in the place and started attacking Nick, Vale, and Halsey. However, Vale couldn't bear it and took out his weapon, using it to kill the spiders. But then Nick scolded him for what he did and told him that those spiders were not dangerous and wouldn't harm them. At that moment, the statue started to appear more clearly in front of them. When Nick focused on it, he saw Princess Amenet in the middle of the desert, telling him that he was the one who saved her from the mummification she was in. When Nick heard this, he couldn't understand anything, and then his mind began to race. He pondered over the implications of what Emma had just revealed. Could it be possible that his entire existence was a fabrication? He thought about his childhood, his memories, his relationships. Were they all just figments of someone's imagination? Doubt and confusion consumed Nick as he tried to process this startling revelation. He felt like his entire world was crumbling around him. The people he thought he knew, the experiences he believed were real, everything seemed like an illusion. Desperate for answers, Nick turned to Emma, his voice trembling with uncertainty. "Emma, are you sure about this? How can I be certain that what you're saying is true?" Emma's expression softened, and she reached out to hold Nick's hand, offering him a sense of comfort amidst the chaos. "I know it's difficult to comprehend, Nick. But I've seen the evidence myself. There are records, hidden documents, and testimonies from people who have discovered the truth. We're not alone in this." Nick took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He realized that he had a choice to make. He could either embrace this unsettling truth and embark on a journey to uncover the secrets of his existence or dismiss it as a wild conspiracy theory and continue living his life as if nothing had changed. Curiosity and a thirst for the truth burned within him. Nick looked into Emma's eyes and nodded. "All right, Emma. If what you say is true, then I need to find out who I really am, no matter how unsettling it may be. I can't ignore this." Emma smiled, relieved by Nick's response. "I'm glad you're willing to face this, Nick. We'll uncover the truth together, one step at a time." With newfound determination, Nick and Emma set out on a quest for answers. They delved into hidden archives, sought out individuals with knowledge of their circumstances, and pieced together fragments of a mysterious puzzle. As they progressed on their journey, Nick discovered the existence of a covert organization known as the Illusionists. This shadowy group had been manipulating reality for their own nefarious purposes, erasing and rewriting the lives of unsuspecting individuals like Nick and Emma. Driven by a sense of justice and a desire to reclaim their identities, Nick and Emma joined forces with a resistance movement dedicated to exposing the illusionists and freeing those under their influence. Together, they navigated through a web of deceit, encountering allies and adversaries along the way. Nick's perception of reality shattered and reformed as he unraveled the layers of his manufactured existence. With each revelation, he grew stronger, more determined, and closer to uncovering the truth about himself and the world he thought he knew. The journey was arduous, fraught with danger and uncertainty, but Nick and Emma persevered. Their bond deepened, and they became each other's pillars of support in a world that constantly shifted beneath their feet. Little did they know that the truth they sought would not only redefine their lives but also hold the key to a far greater revelation, one that would shake the very foundations of human existence. We then transition to two soldiers who go to the location where the plane crashed to see if there are any other bodies there. They search, and one of them finds an open coffin containing the mummy of Ahmenet. As soon as the soldier touches Ahmenet's mummy, she grabs him, draining his life force and possessing his body. When his companion sees what happened, he realizes that Ahmenet is responsible and has the same plans for him. Ahmenet returns to life once again, while the two soldiers become her servants. Afterward, we move to Nick, who is listening to the news about the military plane that crashed in the city of Shur-I. They mention that the only survivor is Soldier Nick, which surprises him since he has no injuries. Nick is questioned by his colleague, Jenny, asking how he managed to survive without a scratch. Nick replies that he doesn't know what happened to him, but he is still alive. At that moment, Jenny tells Nick about the conversation with Queen Ahmenet, revealing that there is a dagger with a red gem. If anyone is stabbed with the dagger, they can become a vessel for another person's soul. The dagger is said to be located in the tomb of one of the knights, along with the red gem. Jenny also informs Nick that the dagger is likely in Europe because the Crusaders were the ones who stole it. She learned this information from a manuscript written by one of the Crusader knights. According to the knight's writings, the dagger is divided into two parts. One half contains the red gem, and the other half is the dagger itself. The knight and the dagger were buried together in England. Jenny suggests that the discovery of the tomb in London, during construction work, might be the place where the gem is located. Meanwhile, Nick encounters Dr. Henry, who is listening to his conversation with Jenny. Dr. Henry tells Nick that they are both cursed by the curse of Queen Ahmenet and need to listen to her to break free from the curse. He contacts a man named Henry, saying that the situation seems serious, and they should bring Nick to him. Later, when some people enter the room where Nick and Dr. Henry are talking, Nick confronts them, not understanding what they want. Suddenly, the mummy, accompanied by a large number of rats, attacks Nick. Desperately trying to find an escape, Nick is overwhelmed by the rats. The mummy approaches him and reveals that he is the chosen one. However, Nick manages to break free and finds himself standing on the road with Jenny. She tries to keep him away from the road, but Nick tells her to stop. He claims that he has been cursed by the gods because he saw the queen in the coffin. Jenny insists on verifying the information using the hieroglyphic writing on the coffin, but Nick doesn't care about the archaeological details. He just wants to save himself from the situation he is in. Nick then tells Jenny that he feels a need to go to a certain place, and they go together. They arrive at the location where Ahmenet is present, and suddenly Nick finds himself surrounded by strange creatures. They capture him and place him on a coffin, and at that moment, Ahmenet appears to extract his soul. She takes out the dagger to kill Nick, but she fails because the red gem is missing from the dagger. At that moment, Jenny enters the scene, frightened by what she sees. Ahmenet is about to kill Jenny when Nick manages to break free from the people holding him. He grabs the dagger and strikes Ahmenet, sending her flying through the air, and she falls to the ground. Ahmenet tries to take the dagger from Jenny, but a team of archaeologists and soldiers surround her, preventing her from making any further moves. Dr. Henry Jekyll, the leader of the team, steps forward with a stern expression on his face. Ahmenet, Dr. Jekyll says, his voice filled with authority, your reign of terror ends here. You will be contained and imprisoned once again. Ahmenet, weakened and furious, struggles against her captors, but their combined strength proves too much for her. She is eventually subdued and securely bound, her powers neutralized by ancient artifacts that the team had prepared for this very purpose. Jenny, still trembling, approaches Nick, her eyes filled with gratitude and relief. Thank you, Nick, she says, her voice quivering. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't arrived in time. Nick gives her a reassuring smile, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. I'm just glad you're safe, he replies sincerely. Dr. Jekyll steps forward once again, his gaze shifting between Ahmenet and Nick. Mr. Morton, He addresses Nick, "Your actions today have proven that you possess qualities that could be of great use to our organization. We are tasked with protecting the world from supernatural threats, and we could use someone with your particular set of skills." Nick raises an eyebrow, intrigued by the offer. He looks at Jenny, who nods encouragingly. "I guess I've had my fair share of encounters with the supernatural," he says with a smirk. "Count me in." As the team begins their preparations to transport Amanette to a more secure facility, Jenny and Nick exchange glances, knowing that their lives have taken an unexpected turn. They are about to embark on a new journey together, fighting against ancient evil and uncovering hidden mysteries that lie in the depths of history. Little do they know that this encounter with Amanette was just the beginning of a much larger battle, one that will test their courage, loyalty, and love for each other. But for now, they stand united, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead, knowing that their shared strength will help them overcome even the darkest of forces. And so, their adventure continues, a new chapter in their lives unfolding as they step into the unknown, guided by a sense of purpose and the determination to protect the world from the forces that seek to plunge it into chaos. And at that moment, Nick and Halsey are together with 4 soldiers to protect them. However, a soldier named Vale arrives and takes Nick away. Halsey is left standing there, unsure of what to do, but she finds Nick in front of her. Just as the chopper is about to crash, Halsey manages to catch up with it at the last moment. Meanwhile, Amanette takes the red jewel to insert it into the dagger. Nick and Halsey are underwater, and Halsey is pulled down and killed. Nick tries to reach her, but he is captured by the creatures with Amanette. Nick tries to escape but fails. Then Amanette comes and tells him that Halsey would have died that way. Nick tries to strike Amanette but is unsuccessful, and she knocks him down. However, Nick gets up, takes the dagger from Amanette, and shatters the jewel. Before Nick breaks the dagger completely, Amanette tells him that if he shatters it, she will remain cursed forever. But upon hearing this, Nick stabs himself with the dagger, gaining 2 powerful beings within him. When he wakes up, he goes to Amanette, strikes her, and kills her. Then he goes to Halsey to wake her up, screams at her, and disappears. After all that has happened, Halsey wakes up confused, not understanding what has occurred. When she wakes up and approaches Nick, she finds him standing alone. When she approaches him, he tells her that he doesn't know what he will do if she gets close to him and tells her to stay away. When Henry arrives at the scene, Nick is gone. Halsey tells Henry what Nick said to her, and Henry takes her with him, explaining that Nick now has 2 beings within him, one good and one evil, and he needs to determine which one he will become. In the end, we learn that Nick has decided to live in the desert with his friend Vale after managing to bring him back to life.